Yep. Yeah, computer.
Just instant flash.
Yeah.
Gets content.
Okay, so we got a metal bucket with sand in it
Did you know?
and we put them off all in there when we get them because they'll stay hot. And they won't burn that 95 degrees, but they'll be 400 or 500. You can't touch it.
Yeah, we had, actually, I was one.
They just keep
There's one
burning. It's
here,
hot.
and there's also.
Yeah. Every landfill.
Well.
Yeah.
And it's not.
No, it's not. There's.
Yep. Great contact with the air and so.
The education process and then we.
And some areas, landfill planning areas are making like mailboxes.
Set up.
Put them in there.
Oh,
And that's great.
Here's a good
It's like
article.
built.
Happy to make copies.
So you're just taking all of them. I don't think it's right. You know, I can see outside.
Yeah, I was saying outside.
Right, throwing it, but they're putting it inside like in malls,
It's a good
stuff
one.
like that.
Let me make
It's the
a
access
copy.
for people to get rid of
You
it.
you have an
I
electronic.
have an electronic.
Yeah, so,
That's right,
I can only
we got
carry
the-
a little bit.
exactly, right, yeah. So, it just, so, and like at the recycling center, they have a building. It's kind of,
We had to set
all of
it.
the gentleman tapes them all. And send them away. And they go to Texas right now.
We got that. It doesn't work that way there.
I assume they extract everything out of it. I don't know what they do. Yeah. And everything's become a lit deal, you know, because of
There's
that.
3 of us in here now, Fatima.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for the question. Yep, see ya.
Did you guys leave when you put it up?
Yeah, he had to go to a thing that he's committed.
Much better. Let's see.
Mine.
The code is deciding that nobody seems to understand.
What again? much did you get the other day?
Short and buried a lot.
Oh, yeah, I had 6 pens.
Yeah, that's about.
Is that how you remember it?
Good wash down from the.
Should have started 10 minutes earlier. Then.
Oh, yeah.
It's not snow.
I don't see it.
It's probably good. Yeah.
Yes.
I think he. Is that all right? Let's look at the budget. I'm gonna make copies for other people. Okay. This is the copy of the budget. Share that. Copies. Actually, yes. Still on the road.
Yeah.
Yes. Morning, Ben. He's class of 19.
Thanks for that.
I got two things by mistake, I don't think.
That's, I started a signed one too, if you need it.
Feel for them.
Yeah.
Well, it's 9:30. All of the so choose to stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call meeting to order with everyone present. As a reminder, the meeting is being recorded. If you choose not to be recorded, you have the option of leaving. First item on the agenda this morning, we have a public hearing.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is now open. It is on the FY 27 budget.
I sent around, or I sent out, and there's some copies over here, a handout that kind of goes through some of the budget overview. This page summarizes your.
Isn't there a way to put that on?
Almost 200 pages of individual departmental expense and revenues down to one page in the department management system. That gives a little more breakdown, and it goes into the levy rate history, valuation history, total estimated fund balances, and funding for organizations. In this, in the handout.
Is there any comments, questions from public? Anyone online with any questions or comments?
Just to explain why we did drop our levy was a little less this year because the last 3 years we put the 911 towers up and we had put where payments were 900,000 a year for 3.5 years on that. So we made our last payment this last year. So now we said we'd lower it if we could, and we lowered it some. Didn't get as much as we like, but we did get it lowered a little bit. because we had to replenish our insurance, health insurance fund, so next year we should be able to lower it some more, so. If you look back in FY 24 is kind of when we jumped, and FY 25 was the biggest jump there, and now we start backing it off a little bit.
But if the change goes through in Des Moines, 2% with a supplemental, then may not be
True.
speak for what we can do next
And
year.
that's still a point of contention between the different chambers, so
Yeah, so
we won't know until they.
there's no,
pass.
there is no guarantee. Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion to second, close the public hearing. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That is unanimous.
So the next action would be to adopt the budget, and the Secretary of State requires us to specifically state the hourly rate for precinct elected officials as part of our budget action, so. Don't mind, I'll put that in the adoption as well.
What is the rate?
It's $18 an hour.
I move to adopt the FY 27 budget as presented. Second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt the FY 27 budget. Is there any further discussion? None?
This would be a roll call because it's going to technically be a resolution.
Mark?
Aye.
Shirley?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Steve? Aye. I also passes unanimously.
The signature page for the budget. Also required as separate action is the setting of the elected official salaries, which are already included in that budget with the 3% increases.
I move to approve the elected officials' salaries for the FY 27 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the elected official salaries for year ending 27. Is there any further discussion? If none, it is a resolution.
Aye.
Shirley?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
I also. pass unanimously.
Currently working with department heads for amendments to the current year budget as well, so probably on next Monday that I'll have a overview of those requests, and we'll have a couple weeks if you need to talk to any of them before there'll be a public hearing on that. The last, actually it'll be Tuesday because of Memorial Day, that's May 26th. So we'll get that next week, I think, is when I'll have the summary, and we'll set that public hearing, just so you know that's in the works. I kind of figured that I will put the 310 sale, because we have 250 going to the payment in the new building. And then the other 60 I would put into the maintenance budget, because we're going to have some remodeling over here to move the IT people. I think there's likely that whoever moves into the IT room wants carpeting, so that'll cost a little bit of something, and there may be some remodeling, obviously, in some offices that we move. So that extra 60,000, then would put in maintenance so that we can pay for all those different products.
I'll work out it, depending on what decisions we make on where we may move, I'll make that. steps that we need to take.
Yeah.
And the proposed changes that we'll need to make.
All right, consent agenda?
Yes, for the consent agenda, I have the minutes, B and the VA and the claim, which you got there, and the VA monthly report.
I move to approve
And the sheriff's quarterly report.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Passes unanimously.
Minutes to sign, and did you have one? Yeah, there's one right
One way
there.
around.
There's 4 signatures, who's, you have to sign, I got Steve.
And I don't know if it works into next week. We would have to put on the agenda our closed session, discuss county property.
Okay. I'll check next week or week after, I'll see what I can't remember what's on the agenda that's coming up. Get that out and soon, about sale of county property.
Mhm. All right, next item agenda, 9:40, Kent Whitcomb, MiEnergy VP for information on data centers. Good morning.
You want to introduce these with you, Kent?
Yeah, I will.
Put you guys down here.
A couple of handouts.
And then kind of face the audience like that.
Pass one down. Yeah, thank you, Winneshiek County Board of Supervisors. I'm Ken Whitcomb, the VP at MiEnergy Cooperative. I got Chris Geeson here with me. If you want to introduce yourself.
Chris Geeson, I'm the manager of economic development at Durham Power Cooperative out of La Crosse. So MiEnergy is one of our cooperative members.
VP of Member Services, I oversee our key accounts, our energy management, our tower supply, and recently got into a lot of the renewable energy side of it too, with a member-owned system as well as utility scale solar. So our mission is safely provide affordable and reliable services at MiEnergy. We serve the majority of the land mass. It might not be the majority of the residents in the county, but the majority of the land mass in Winneshiek County. Alliant would be the other main energy provider for you guys. Again, appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of you guys this morning. MiEnergy is seeking data centers. We are having that discussion. We're trying to be very transparent about that process. We have talked to developers, but one thing we're trying to do is make ready sites essentially. We're trying to get ahead of the game, make sure that there's a lot of things in place when we are having that discussions with the developers, that the county, the city, and anyone else that would possibly be involved is already up to date there. Kind of some of the just general information on what is a data center. We did kind of send something and sent before that we've had another public meeting in another community for us is data center is a facility that houses computing infrastructure, including servers, storage systems, networking equipment, and other components necessary to store, process, and distribute large amounts of data. These centers are critical to the functioning of modern digital services, from cloud computing and social media to banking and government operations. So really a data center in my eyes is a digital library. I mean, whether you guys are using on your phone, your computer, banking system, it's used everywhere. A lot of the differences, the general types of data centers, AI, cloud computing, AI is something that's really taking off in the last couple of years. We're using a lot of different processes. The other one would be traditional server hosting as well. We have a lot of companies now that are trying to host their servers locally next to them where they're able to put everything together. And there's also a lot of businesses that are also leasing that space out. And the last one would be crypto mining facilities. And that was something that's kind of that I handed out to you guys in front of you right now. We do have one data center on our system. This actually was just operational back in December. It's a 10 megawatt crypto mining facility. It's located right between New Hampton and Lawler, Iowa, in Chickasaw County. It's right in front of the Homeland ethanol plant if you ever drive by it there. But when you're looking, this one is a modular unit. So it is 10 megawatts. You'll see 8 different crates that are double stacked on top of each other. And then we have a substation that's one of those substations are feeding that data center there. This facility is fan cooled, air cooled system. So with the servers inside those crates, if you guys want to look a little bit, it's not the same one, but on the second page that's what an air circulated closed loop system looks like. That's actually the glycol solution there being mixed through the servers for cooling purposes. So again, that's not the same. I know I'm attached, but the first one we have fan cooled. The next one, if you just kind of want to see, because a lot of times you'll see what the outsides look like. Well, there's kind of a visual of what the closed loop system would look like internally there. But again, I'm more than open if it's something if you supervisor would want to do, if we could ever schedule a visit, ever go on site to take a look at that, or want to see what the noise decibel level is or anything there, we're more than happy to schedule that sometime with you guys too, to go take a site visit of that one. And again, I want this to be open communication, so throw questions or anything as I go along here.
So that's correct. The Lawler site is a fan cooled site, not a closed loop. Does this site also use water?
Nope, this one would not use any water at all. So that is strictly fan cooled system. So no, you can't really see that. It's all located in the back of the crates there. So
What's the energy use for that cooling?
so that would be a 10 megawatt facility. Pretty much it'll run 24/7. It does shut down for some situations. We'll get into a little bit more later, but yeah, it's a constant draw.
Are you using any renewable energy to do that?
Not at this site. We had talked about it. A lot of that stuff that's actually on the backside there, we got the railroad tracks, then Homeland actually owns the majority of the property around there. So they would tie that in. It's something we'd have to work with, but we've had discussions with Homeland on doing a renewable project, so they'd come before that.
So the noise from the fans on that, how far what decibel levels and how far away would people notice that?
So it's 60 to 80 decibel levels on the fan cooled systems the majority of the time. This is a little different here. Obviously you have the fans facing, pushing back away from the road. You do have Highway 24 there. You have the substation. If you're standing there, probably right by that truck, you're actually probably hearing the level of the substation louder than you would on the fan cooled systems there. So grain bin, it's probably got about the same sound noise of that transformer sitting individually in front of one of those. So
What's the energy wattage used by a town of, say, 8,000?
on how many kilowatt hours they would use.
What's this equivalent to?
So I would say on a peaking level, if you're looking at 8,000, you're probably pretty close to 10 to 15 megawatt would be kind of the system capacity there. But it really depends on that community. Is it more residential? Do you have a lot of commercial industrial load in there too?
So
So
that's what I'm getting at, is that this installation uses the equivalent of.
I would say if you were gonna take a shot at the dark, I would say about 8,000 people, that would probably be about 50% of that. One of the things, again, this is a 10 megawatt facility. Obviously, there's a lot of hyperscale systems in there that are much larger. Meta and Google are looking at the gigawatt size facilities. Just generally in capacity for our system on MiEnergy's network and on the transmission line, we don't have that amount of capacity on our system. A lot of the stuff you'll probably see is this generally 10 megawatts, usually close to transmission or close to its existing substation. We do have some transmission outlines.
You're
Systems
talking a gigawatt is like 100 times the size of a 10 megawatt, just so you understand what the terminology is.
Yep, exactly. So again, on our system, it's gonna be, this would generally be, maybe not this setup here, but it's generally gonna be about that size with 10 megawatt. We do have some larger transmission, but again, you're probably still not gonna see in our area anything over 50 to 100 megawatt type deal.
How much per year in tax incentives and for how many years in Iowa?
So a lot of this all depends on what the facility is like on there. Is it a brick and mortar building? You know, is it a crate system? A lot of like this, there might not be a lot of property taxes there, but usually they'll do like a pilot tax or something like that, where they're still able to pay some kind of tax.
No, the question was, how many taxes are you not having to pay because of Iowa's tax incentives for this, for data centers?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, that would be typically between, the county down there, and then you usually don't get involved with that end of the equation. But we were at one down in Manchester, Iowa, that was a little bit larger than this one. I think their tax bill was around maybe $60,000 mark with the Iowa taxes that they had negotiated with the local municipality there. So,
Well, Iowa state, as a state, our
Oh,
legislature
sure,
put in
sure.
tax incentives for data centers, which is taking money out of communities, tax money out to communities instead of in communities.
So again,
It's
this,
another concern we need to address.
yep, again, we provide energy there. That is a separate company that owns that facility, so they would
Right.
have any tax incentives.
In your opinion, zoning restrictions on data centers, is it not fair to loop them all together? I mean, because you have some like this that are air cooled and some that use water. Is there a divide in there somewhere? Or have you seen that anywhere?
I mean, it really, you probably hit the nail on the head there. It's really gonna be what's the cooling system on it? If it's fan cooled, okay, you got noise, you got decibel levels, how close is it? What kind of setbacks do you need there? Air closed loop systems, water cooled systems where the decibel level isn't nearly as what a fan cooled system would be. Probably don't need those kind of setbacks on it. Again, with the water cooled systems, where are they getting that? Is it closed loop where it's gonna be circulated glycol solution in it? Or is it tapped in the local aquifer where they're drawing water out of the facility? So it would kind of really depend on what type it was. I don't know if you could lump them all together.
So with peak energy load, how does all the data centers already affecting going to rate? You have an incentive for people to have their water shut down and all that stuff. Do these data centers then shut down during peak energy so we don't have to pay higher rates? Or-
Yep, just like I kind of spoke about, our priority is affordability, reliability. One of the things is any of these data centers that come in, we're making sure none of our other member classes are subsidizing any of that. So any data center that were to come, we're making sure that they're paying the full cost. And then they also have usually a letter of credit or something in place too, where if they didn't shut down and they had that really high energy bill, then we're gonna be able to collect that from them. But we do have an incentivized rate that would really require them to be able to shut down during peak times. So like a lot of our other load management programs we have, if you wanna shut down, you can. Peak alert, high energy prices, anything you do, reduce load or shift load, we encourage it with the data center. If it gets over a certain threshold on pricing, we're actually shutting them down. So they are not running during our peak times. I would say generally for them, it's about 4 or 5 times a month that we're seeing them shut down between 2 and 4 hours just to stay off our system peak. So I know that not every data center is able to do that. Again, this is a crypto mining facility. You're gonna have AI computing ones where it's gonna be a little more requirement to make sure they're running. But we're still gonna have a very similar thing where they're gonna pay those costs if they do run time through on high peak time. So they're either gonna have to pay that cost, or what we really push them to do is have some kind of on-site generation, where if they're not able to completely shut down like this one is, they're still able to disconnect from the grid and then run on their own generator or backup somehow. So we put that on them.
Did you locate this, or was this located here because there was surplus capacity within your own system so that you weren't impacting other areas?
Yep, this one was actually nailed it. We had capacity in our area, and actually, if you look at the photo there's 2 substations there, and actually one of them weren't being used at that time. So there was available capacity, and then part of the infrastructure was already in place for it. So and then again, with what the area took, usually you don't have them double stacked like that, but just with the parking lot, everything in there, nice framework there. That was the one that we were able to move forward with.
And just for the public's information, MiEnergy is here today because we are at the very, very, very beginning of this conversation, an educational piece of data centers. There are many of them in Iowa. We are in Winneshiek County. And as a board, we're interested in doing our due diligence and homework, research, and gathering information before we move forward at all. We're not saying we're bringing a center into Winneshiek County. We're doing the work it takes to have an opinion and build our educational piece on this.
So if we want to make any changes to our zoning regulations, we have background.
Sufficient
Yeah,
background.
we want knowledge as the basis so that we're putting the correct information in place and when we do make a zoning change. And there's a lot of different technology changes. And I've been asking people within my district what their opinion is, and most of them have very limited opinion because they don't know how things, they're hearing some stories about old systems, and no education has been out there to bring it current as to the changes within this, which appear to be happening very quickly.
And it is happening quickly, so we welcome community, send us anything you have or any information you have. This needs to be a community decision.
Oh, I appreciate you guys having me here, just talk on the utility side. I would mention a couple other things there too, on just, you had mentioned renewable energy. That is something that we've been limited to, just because we do have a lot of local generation already in this area, a lot of saturation, but the other one, not so this one, but we are having discussions on another project, and with this added load, that does give us opportunity to do renewable projects. Actually, through our G&T, we're able to either own or do a power purchase agreement through a developer and essentially purchase elsewhere or own our own generation up to 10% of our peak load. So we can have 10, 15 megawatts of our own generation.
What I've read so far in not only in Iowa, but many other states, the development of data centers has increased fossil fuel need and consumption. So it's put off our climate change legislation a few years back. And I'm not sure that's the way we need to be going as a country personally. So that's why I ask about renewable energy. We can use wind and solar. I mean, that's another piece of this conversation.
Two very big perspectives and
Right.
pros and cons on that. Yep,
Yep.
added load, we're able to do more renewables. Yes, there's more opportunities for renewables coming in, but at the same time, that added growth, if we're trying to get to 100% renewable, that does become another hurdle to try to go for sure. So.
If a data center comes in with a request to you and they're not adjacent or very near a substation as this one is, the cost of transmission lines and things of that nature, how are those taken care of so that they don't impact your retail rates to your local customers?
They're usually passed on.
I'll kick that one to our G&T.
Yeah, so we're the generation and transmission provider for MiEnergy, as well as 23 other cooperatives across Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa, and then Illinois a little bit. Our policy for these types of they are requiring an upgrade for that size of a project. They're going to pay for that upgrade on their own. We don't want to have that passed on to other members, other members of ours, other members of theirs. Really isolating that and protecting those costs from being shifted unduly. We want them to be, especially from the cooperative perspective, being able to put downward pressure on the rates and get new revenue into the system, make sure that it's still affordable and reliable.
And that's a contractual agreement.
Well, it would be between the end use member and MiEnergy, but in order for us to do the transmission upgrades, we're going to be paid, upfront for those by the end use member. And how you guys negotiate that it'd be up to you guys, but
Generally, when you invoice us, we pass it on.
so that the idea is
Passed on to the consumer. In many other cases, it's an upwards rate of 26% increases in the utility costs.
We definitely do not want to ever get there with it. I mean, that's another thing that has come up too, is this, what has this done with the energy rate? A lot of people will say data centers has increased electric energy
Well,
rates.
because it has.
Yep. I would say a couple of the big things that we've seen just on MiEnergy system and what we've looked at for rates. I mean, this 10 megawatt data center that we were able to land in December there, that it was a lot of load growth, and we're not having any energy. Market continues to go up. That might be a different story. But again, what I'd hate to be for us to be sitting at is to see the capacity market go up in general for everybody. And now you see other utilities that have landed that load growth, whether it's a data center, industrial load, anything, just load growth in general. And then we're sitting there with no load growth, but the capacity market goes up. Now we're going to be the ones to really bear that burden and see the rate increase. So it's kind of twofold.
No, we show, our IT department has a clip that you provided that shows what this Lawler facility looks like in a short flyover. And so it's on the screen up here for everyone to.
Yeah, whether you want to go through the whole 5 minutes of it or at least get probably the first 30 seconds to a minute anyways, so.
When to cut it.
Yeah, so this is essentially, we had one of our linemen, we have a few drone pilots co-op, which has been great, but essentially we've flown this, and this is kind of looking at, there's the individual crates again, you actually a megawatt for each one, double stacked. And then you have the transformers there sitting right in front, that's actually serving 2 crates at a time. One thing that is gonna be added that hasn't been done yet is they are gonna have to put a fence, a perimeter fence around that facility that has not been installed yet, but I'm not sure if they've got to that point yet.
This was built in 25.
Yep, this was fully operational in December. It was probably done. They didn't get all the crates, but a lot of our electric was probably all in there in September, I think, so. Fairly recent video here. And then you can see there's our substation. Again, all that was already existing. None of that infrastructure was new at all.
And that's Highway 24 right next to it. there.
Highway 24, you got 3-4 miles to the city of Lawler there. So yeah, yep, all that's out there right now. So if anyone wants to take a look, we got, go ahead and drive by there. It's fenced in, whatnot. I said we can do a site visit anytime you guys would like, but. Yep, that's kind of what it looks like at this point. It's just gonna get more of an aerial view of it, but this one is fan cooled. Usually with the water cooler, you will see it actually take up a little more space because a lot of the chillers there actually need a separate component in itself. So you usually see double the amount of size on that one.
For a modular, and then if it was a, brick and mortar type facility, looks like a typical industrial building, different shapes and sizes. Some, can be poured concrete, can be, steel, full type structure, that kind of thing, but there's one north of Rochester, as you're driving through, right out to the west of Highway 52 of Casey's and Orinoco. Actually, behind the People's Energy Cooperative, there's a 16-acre site. I think it's I can't remember how many square feet that building is, but it's been there for about 10 years there with the construction or concrete construction. So if you guys are driving by, you can see that too. So.
Yeah, that's about my narration on that. Whether you want to stop or have it go in the background.
It gets some idea out there. I've had numerous people ask me, when I mentioned this and explained that's what that was a data center. They were shocked because they were all curious as to what it was.
Yep.
Because there's no identification of anything, but it's, they just see it as something, some thought it was grain dumping bins or something or whatever. They had no idea. So it clarifies.
To clarify something you said earlier, this one or ones like this that you said that these type on your system have actually helped keep your energy rates lower because it was using excess capacity, which right now they keep the energy rates lower. And it's in the future, you don't know how that might.
Exactly. Yep, you pretty much nailed their load growth with the good load profile too. High energy use without those really rapid peaks has helped our rates and has helped our rates down as capacity constraints there in 5-10 years, what the capacity market's going to do a little more unknown. But at this point, this has helped our rates, kept them stable this year.
You're putting a system into, you are proposing a system in Harmony, Minnesota. Where does that stand?
So when I say proposing a system, we're essentially, like I kind of started off, our process is kind of like we've identified an area with capacity. What can we do with the zoning on it as well? And we've kind of, okay, let's get this check marked and ready to go. So we can, instead of having data centers come to us, we can send an RFP and be like, we have this, this, and this. This is what the city or county requires in their ordinance. Does it meet these specifications? And then we market the facility. So right now in Harmony, we've developed some capacity, or we've identified capacity there. We've done a public meeting with the city itself and had residents come in and talked about data centers. Right now, the city itself is working through their ordinance process. Right now, they're trying to identify what kind of system they want, what's the cooling system, what's the setbacks and everything else, and trying to get that in place, which will probably be in the next couple of months type deal.
Yeah, they really started with, what do we want to see in our community? I think that's much what you guys are at that point as well. And it's much better to be ahead of the game on that than responding with something, on the line, whether you want or you don't. The conversation is much easier to be held at this point. So just kudos for that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
One issue that's come up, and this was an article that was in Epoch Times about the day before yesterday. And it's about NDAs associated with many data centers. So things are done in the dark without transparency and so forth. I don't know what the legal legal implications are of whether or not that's a limited thing or whatever, but is that something that you recognize, and as far as keeping it transparent so that people know what's happening and there's an open public view is an important part of it?
I don't know what the city's doing on that end, but that was something that came up very early on. We have not signed any NDAs with any developer at all. And we don't plan on doing that at all with any of these data centers. So we've been very open with that. No NDAs, everything's been very transparent.
Once they're up, they're constructed, like how many, is there employment for people with that, or is there a technician that lives nearby?
It's all gonna depend on the size of it, and then is it a modular unit like that, or is it a brick and mortar facility? With that one, I think there's no one they do have a little office space. If you kind of see, there's the crates, and then there's that little small building by the truck there. So there is an office space, but there's no one there that's there 24/7.
No significant amount of
Correct.
jobs.
Nope, not in that location. Usually that one's monitored. There's a lot of tech work when servers go down and stuff like that, but they're all alerted, and then they go out that time to repair it. So on that site, there's not. If we're looking on the, like, a little larger scale system, a brick and mortar facility like that, for a 50 megawatt, which would be 5 times the size of that as well, we've heard anywhere from 15 to 25 jobs for it that would be available, and some of those on site as well. Actually, at least half of those on site.
A lot of the developers, they might have portfolio of sites, however many that might be, and so they might have a centrally located crew that makes the rounds, but yeah, it just depends on what gets built.
Well, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm happy to speak in front of you guys here, and if there's any interest at all to see this on site at all, we can definitely more than happy to schedule something with you guys. So appreciate your time very much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Chris.
Absolutely. Next item on the agenda, Isabelle Goldschmidt to talk about
With copy of that. And
county funding concerns.
did you have a, this is, I have something so I can get your name and.
You guys pull these chairs up.
Yeah.
What do we hope?
Yes, good morning. Okay, so sorry, we, that's not the fact that we're finished, we're not working this morning, so we don't have any papers to put in front of you, and we will be reading off your phone, so we apologize for that, but we hope you can bear with us. And we hope we'll share everything that we feel is just important that if you could share with you, and I hope our words carry just as much importance of the numbers could have showed you.
Would you please speak up because the.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Pick you up.
Yeah, yes, sorry. Anyways,
Kind of face.
yes, of course. I'm Jaden, this is Isabelle. We are both students at Luther College. And so we are here today and we'll be talking a lot about community. We'll be talking about the core community. So we feel it's important to acknowledge that neither I nor Isabelle grew up in Decorah. And so that is a very important factor because of how much we'll be talking about community. And thus, however, we do feel though, we have become such an important factor in our community, we do consider ourselves to be a part of Decorah now. We care about the people here. We care about the people, whether that be those here that live here year round or the students that stay here on campus, me being one of those who have stayed here for the summer. Decisions that are made in this room don't just impact those within the core community, but they impact those on the campus as well. So we understand that while this board does not make decisions on the performers of the county fair, we do make decisions on the budget that they do receive. And because of that, that is a very high financial responsibility, but it's also a moral responsibility that we ask you guys to consider. We are here today to present a petition, but we also are here to ask that you carefully consider the broader implications of approving this year's budget.
I'm sorry, I'm having a difficult time understanding what you're saying. Can you please speak up?
Yes, I'm so sorry. Yes, I will. Isabel's gonna speak now.
I'm sorry you don't have a microphone.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Yes.
Yeah, so many members of our community have expressed concern that approving this budget as it is currently stands could indirectly support a performer, the Confederate Railroad, whose names and imagery are closely tied to the Confederacy. For many people, the Confederacy is not a neutral or historical symbol. It represents a legacy of slavery and imagery that is closely tied to the Confederacy. This history continues to affect some members of our community today, and it causes injustice and racial division. When public funds are used in ways that appear to support or normalize those symbols, it can send a message, intentional or not, about what we are willing to accept as a community.
Could you say that again, please?
What part would you like to
About
hear?
public funds, when public funds are used.
When public funds are used in ways that appear to support or normalize those symbols, it can send a message, intentional or not, about what we are willing to accept as a community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is not about one performer or one event, but this is about the values we choose to reflect through our public funding. Even indirect support, which is what is happening here through the county fair budget, is at the very least a tolerance, if not acceptance, of the ideas and symbols that many of our community have experienced as harmful. We believe it is important to be clear on what we expect here. Our concern is not about censorship. It is about responsibility on the part of the board. Public funds should reflect a commitment to inclusion, respect, and a historical awareness.
I want to acknowledge something specific to this space and this community. Iowa was one of the states that sent thousands of men to fight in the American Civil War, and many never came home. Some of my family included in that. Just outside this meeting room, there's a monument honoring those individuals, members of this community who lost their lives in that conflict. Iowa sent those men to fight against the Confederacy. Iowa sent the most men per capita to fight in the Union during the Civil War. Turning our backs on this history should not be our actions. That history is not distant for us. It is remembered here in this building. For many, that makes the association with the Confederacy a symbol or a name specifically difficult to hear. It raises real questions about how we honor those sacrifices today and how public decisions today reflect our understanding of that history.
So with all of this in mind, we respectfully ask that the board consider the message that approving this year's budget would send. If the county cannot control performer selection, we ask that you explore options that ensure public funds are not used in ways that conflict with the values of equity and inclusion that so many people in the decor community expect. At a minimum, we ask that transparency, dialogue, and a commitment to reviewing how these decisions are made are set to move forward at the very least. The real question is, how do we end up sitting here in the first place?
We are proud to be part of this community, the decor community, the Winneshiek County community. And we believe that its ability to grow, reflect, and lead with integrity is here. This decision made here doesn't shape the events, they shape what this community stands for. Thank you for your time, your service, and your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our money just again goes for 4-H and building repair. So, I mean, if you're against us giving money for 4-H kids and building repair, then no, that's what we give our money for. That's what it goes for. It's none of the stuff you guys are preaching.
4-H is a
It's getting ridiculous.
very educational program.
And we do understand that, and that's why we sit here, because I've been to the county fair. I'm not from here. I'm from Henderson, Kentucky. And so I'm from the South. And so I understand. However, I've been to the fair. It's about the kids. It's about the animals.
Yep.
It's about the fun.
If it wasn't for 4-H and FFA, there would not be a Winneshiek County Fair. So it's the kids. If you've been down there.
Focus on the kids and take them off the listing.
I agree.
It's all about the kids.
It is. It's about the animals.
Yep.
And because of that, that's why I posed that. How did we sit here in the first place? That's why the board that makes this decision is so lucrative. We can't even find any information on them to go and talk with them about this decision. That's why I posed the question, how do we sit here? Why are we here in the first place? We want open dialogue. We want transparency. We want to talk about that decision overall because decor is such a valuable place. I love Luther. I love decor. I love being here. I have given so much to this community and I couldn't have asked for a better place to be and spend my past 4 years.
I believe that their board would be willing to have you at a meeting.
Can you let us know where to find them then? We've emailed them many times. We've asked them through the Freedom of Information Act to release their agendas, their minutes, and their budgets because we are allowed access to those. And maybe to release them to us as public citizens.
spoke with one this morning. That person was gonna watch this meeting and see how it went. And then move forward with there, so they may be open to having you in the meeting. I can have that discussion with them.
You want to leave contact information?
We'd love to.
So.
Yes.
Got a question, Tom?
No, I just have a statement to make. The Winneshiek County Fair Board, you folks can go to that anytime you want when they have a meeting. Because my understanding is the Winneshiek County supervisors give $25,000 to the Fair Board. $12,500 is for maintenance and upkeep of the buildings and grounds. $12,500 is for forage. You don't make any decision as to who the Fair Board hires to play. After all, Confederate Railroad is a country and western pop band. They are not racist. They are not discriminatory. They were formed back when in 1987. They've been around this country for how many years? And now you want to call these people racist?
Okay, thanks, Tom. Yep.
I think they're confused about the reason for the Civil War too. We were fighting for freedom for everyone.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Yeah. This is not a public hearing. This is not a public hearing.
So, okay, I'm done.
Yep, nope, this is not a public hearing. They're
No,
done.
it's not uncommon for me to, if
Yeah.
someone raises their hand, to take a question from them, so
I'd like to say something and not be interrupted. What I'd like to say is thank you for coming and bringing this up. It is a community conversation that needs to be had. And it is my hope that we can evolve as a species where Nazi symbols and racist symbols like the Confederate flag are not condoned or go unchecked. And that's okay to have that conversation as a community. The Fair Board are not racist people. The fair is a wonderful place to go. I think as a community, we can have conversations to say, why is this offensive? What's the historical context of this? And let's move beyond in the future so that we don't make these same mistakes again. I mean, that's an easy thing to talk about. And it is important to talk about these issues because it does affect people. If it were the Nazi railroad with a swastika symbol, I think we'd all be saying, oh, no, we can't do that. There's no difference here. The band has every right to use that name and that imagery. We don't need to condone it with our taxpayer dollars.
Tom, you have something quick?
Yes, I do. We have another flag here in Decorah.
Oh,
Tom, don't go
No.
there right now.
let's not go there.
No.
No.
So you let other people, I just want to be clear, you let other people speak, but you don't let me speak, okay?
Yep.
That's fine. I just want to clarify that.
All right.
During our budget process, every aspect of this is discussed in open meetings. Everything about every funding request that comes from any organization, the 23 that we fund, all of them are public information and then all published and everything is available online in our recordings and in these meetings. Every bit of it is out there in the open.
So next year, when we discuss budgets and did you get a copy of this year's budget summary off the table? There's a page this is the page. And these are all the organizations that we give money to, none of which do we have jurisdiction over their policy decisions. We give them all money for other things. I think it's fair to say that this year, this upcoming budget year, next 27, we will be having discussions about we're giving county fair $25,000 for this and this, and we want a full detailed report of how that money was used so that we can show the public we didn't pay for the Confederate Railroad. We're paying for forage programs and infrastructure and buildings, which I completely support the fair. I mean, I think everybody in this room agrees on that. It's common ground. But we will have discussion and say, we need to be accountable for how those tax dollars are used. So I think this is a good conversation to
Then
have.
you're gonna have to go down that list and make sure you do that for everyone.
We should be asking for detailed reports from each of the organizations we
You
give
can't
money
pick and
to.
choose who you want.
Yes.
I'm
And
All
not,
right,
I'm not.
we're gonna move on.
one more, would you bring up
Thank
the
you for
point
coming.
of the FOIA request that is clarified so that I just any
I'd like to thank you guys for having us, and I would like to say that we are not,
brought up that
and
they
again,
wouldn't answer their FOIA requests. So
Yes,
people
yeah.
understand the Fair Board
Oh.
is different.
Yeah, the FOIA request.
so in our final words, we'd like to say we are not, we understand it's such a hard decision. It's such a hard topic. We are not against the Fort Fairgrounds. We are not against the 4-H fair. We're not against any of it. And we understand coming here was such a hard decision for us and for a lot of the community. And we only did it to push against the decision of the Confederate Rebel, not to push against any other thing. It's to bring attention to the issue, not any other else. We understand it's an impossible decision for you all. And that's the only reason we're here today.
Thank you.
Yeah, we look forward to talking more.
Thank you.
All more.
And Tom, the only reason I got you short is that's a discussion for a different day.
No discussion for today.
Oh, it's-
You let me speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Come on up, Sean. Next item is Sean Snyder, Emergency Management Coordinator, with the next steps for the strategic planning. Good morning.
Good morning. So let's take one fast down. Got a couple extra. I didn't print a lot of extras. I apologize.
Does anybody want one? Because I can share with Mark.
You sure?
Yeah. Anybody else?
Wow.
So I'll keep this brief. We'll get you back on track pretty quickly. But so this first page is just kind of a summary of what Upper Explorerland did for us. And then the next page, if you flip over, is kind of what would be my suggestions. Before we get into that, though, I guess I just want to ask, what is your guys as the governing board here? What's your plans for this? I mean, no disrespect when I say this, but I mean, we're all busy. I don't want to invest a lot of time in this if it goes nowhere. And that's fine. I'm not belittling what you guys have done. And I'm actually very happy for what you guys did with Upper Explorerland, but we're all going to be very limited by tax dollars, tax revenue. We don't know what that bill is going to look like. It could be worse. It could be status quo. I'll try to be optimistic for you this morning. Maybe it'll improve things. I doubt, but we could all use a little optimism this morning. So I'll throw that out there. So my point is a lot of this is going to be driven by how much revenue does Winneshiek County have to spend on extra things. So I just want to be transparent with you. And I don't want to waste a lot of your time and a lot of department heads' times if we can't do much of anything other than what Upper Explorer already provided. Does that make sense? Hope I'm not coming across negative this morning. I'm not trying to be. So on this page here, the second page is kind of just a quick recommendation. Basically, we would take what Upper Explorerland did for you guys, and we just need to assign ownership, and then we need to delegate lead individuals or departments for each priority goal that was identified, and you kind of see how it breaks down from there. The last page, I apologize for the tiny font, but I just wanted to kind of show that on one page. That kind of be how we keep each other accountable. Once we identify who those key people are and what the objective is that they're doing, we can kind of have a dashboard, so to speak, to where you guys can see progress as we move forward. When we start using that, if we start using that, it'll be printed to a size that everybody can read. But I just wanted to show you an idea, So I guess I'm throwing the ball back in your guys' court. I'm happy to sit and wait on this until, maybe we reevaluate this fall once we know what the tax reform bill looks like. I'm happy to kick it off and get going. I think quarterly meetings is more than enough as we move forward. It's really, I'm just looking for direction.
I don't mind waiting till after the legislature kind of pans out and see what happens. However, there are a few goals we could be working on internally for communication between departments, communication with the public, that I think it would be neat or nice to start on.
Sure.
And I would like to see us assign you as the facilitator of this project. And county government works at a very slow snail's pace for a reason. So we're not in a hurry to get everything done in the next few months. We can't. But we could pick one, start there, and then move forward. And, picking one or two, like internal communication between departments and external communication to the public. Those are two things we can start working on that don't mean extra expenditures or waiting on the state legislature.
No, I like that, and that's a good point, Shirley, because like when I work with my commission, for example, or the 911 board, I develop a 5-year strategic plan, and it's very important to note in there that if we don't accomplish one of those goals, it's not a negative.
Right.
It's just things came up,
Yep.
kind of thing, and reevaluate in 5 years.
And exploring new revenue streams is also something.
Correct.
we Should be looking at,
Yeah.
probably more so communication.
So maybe as a directive, if you guys want to just email me, kind of your priorities, what you'd like to see kind of kicked off, that don't invest a lot of money. I can certainly take those and run with them, and maybe a lot of it can be done just an email or a virtual meeting or something where we're not having to bring people in, kind of thing.
That, and I mean, we do hold department head meetings every once in a
Yeah.
while. Instead of those meetings being department heads coming in and just saying, well, here's what we've been doing, and then we all leave. It could be a meeting of working on these goals instead, and then it includes all the different silos of Winneshiek County and the departments we have. So we have an agenda saying, here's what we're gonna do today. Be ready to discuss this, and we'll end the meeting with XYZ or whatever.
Yeah, one thing that I utilize a lot in my profession is job form. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but it gives I use it for the emergency responders whenever there's an opportunity for improvement that they like to relay to me. They click on a link or use a QR code and they bring that in and it goes to the right people. Forward facing to the public might be a depository such as that people can have as an avenue instead of just an email link, for example. That's something we can implement pretty easily and no cost associated to it.
So our very first thing is to look at some of the goals that were set and identify which ones are minimal cost and which
Correct.
ones are relying on state changes.
Yeah.
Take the ones that are minimal cost and start with those.
As usual, Ben, you said it much better than I did. Yes.
I would like to see that
Exactly.
first step involve the department heads in that discussion too. Like that be the first meeting of you, the board and department heads is to look at those. What are the ones that don't cost anything and what can we start working?
Sure.
Well, I think we probably have the ability to determine that, Shirley.
I'm just trying to be more inclusive and work as a team in the county.
I'm speaking for one department head here, but I think if you guys, this is what I brought up that very first meeting that got canceled. I think a lot of us are gonna look to you guys to give us the goalposts. And then we can operate from within that. It's kind of a hybrid of both of what you guys are saying, I think. Cause we all have ideas, I'm sure, and ideas cost money and we need to just, if you guys give us the goalposts, I think that'll help me run with it, so to speak.
We kind of got the goalposts in our work with Upper Explorer Land. We saw what priorities came out of that.
Then do you have something?
I was just trying to figure out how to coordinate next steps. I mean, each of the supervisors can email you directly but separately because we don't want any open meeting law violation, but things that you think are either email you or talk to you that are low or no cost priorities for each supervisor, and then maybe we could have a department heads meeting and say, here's kind of where we're starting.
I like that idea, if that works for you guys, and if you could just email me so I don't lose it in translation, and that way I can just take it, put it into a document, and we can kick it off.
Maybe in another middle next month or in the next month or something, we can get a first department head meeting to say, here's
So
some things.
So we just say everyone give like a top 3 for the deal, see where the consensus of that.
Well, you've already had the ranking now.
Yep.
But I think it's more looking at the ones and which ones do you think can be implemented without much cost.
No cost impact.
Yeah. Whether it's the one, I mean, maybe there's only one other you think is cheap, or there's 10 that you think are cheap. Well, let Sean know which ones you think could be accomplished with little to no cost. And we'll start with that and then after the first meeting and we know what happens in the legislature, maybe we can say, okay, well, we maybe have this much money. Where do we apply it on the rest of them?
I like that idea. Works well for me, and I kind of look at it like how we do with security, courthouse security. You know, maybe in the future, if there's funding, we create a line item under the auditor or whatever for this type of stuff, and we have that where if there's low costs with doing something, we have it already established in the budget. We can try to check some of that stuff off. That's down the road if there's funding.
Well, we look forward to working with you on this as the facilitator for the strategic plan.
Thank you for helping us.
Of course.
Thank you.
You guys have a good day.
We'll be in contact.
Give me our county engineer with the road project updates. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning. All right, so build grant, there's nothing new this week. Subdivision data, nothing new this week. Corey Hill met with county attorney on Thursday and finalized how that document is intended to look. It'll be passed on to the city and to Brunings. Brunings rep came in on Friday. We discussed with the Brunings rep how that's going to look. So I think we're on track to getting this project actually real steps moving forward. Bridge 307 south of Bridgeway, the East Pier is under construction. Pile has been driven on it. We're still looking to hopefully for the footing today. West Pier, the pile of footing and the stem were all constructed last week. W40, the pipe installation has begun. It's trenched out. The rains that we had on Thursday did not damage that trench, so that's interesting. The rains that we had did slow us down on 350th Street, the concrete patching. It was just too wet to pour, so we'll continue working that throughout the week. This week, that'll be a different patches will be going on throughout the summer. The new scoop operator attended the excavator safety training and independence on Tuesday. I was able to fit in that safety training at the last minute. The rock resurfacing operation finished one blade district in District 5, and will begin hauling to the Austin shop from their blade districts today. I'm not sure which one.
My road is significantly improved.
Okay.
How'd that happen?
It was bad before, like I was
talking
worried I
about-
would lose a part of my car or something. Potholes and bumps.
I just want to make it known that he never once complained to me.
I didn't, but
Not
you know,
once.
What you thought about it?
I thought about inviting him out to my house and
Say,
say, have to drive on the road and he would go for his hand.
Is that 143rd or in Ross Valley?
140, well,
Yeah.
it changes, it's 148, and then it becomes 250, whatever.
Oh, yeah. So you get, yeah.
But the hill part, the bottom part,
Bottom.
yeah, it was bad before, it's way better now.
Okay. Sorry.
Are you gonna complain about the dust?
No.
Okay.
Okay. I'm glad I was able to help. I know where they were going by your house, so.
Yeah, they did.
Good. New scoop operator, okay, rock resurfacing county, we did purchase a trailer. I think I emailed everybody on Friday of last week. $13,000.
Nice one.
It was
we were happy with the deal that we got there, I think. And by we, I mean, everybody in the shop was excited about that one. We renewed our software agreement with Carlson Software. Surveyor and GIS department will be installing 12 new survey monuments as replacements to the 3-mile grid GPS system. This came about as the federal government is updating its surveying system. And there's another one of those unfunded mandates that kind of gets passed on to the local governments. In this case, the GIS department is willing to fund this.
Nice.
So that was special thanks.
What does a monument look like?
Have you seen you'll see different places throughout the country where they say survey monument and it'll have, 3 posts to guard it and everything else. We're not going to put those kind of ballast stuff, but it'll be the same thing that's kind of in there. We have a vendor. You drive a big stake in the ground and it's supposed to drain well and stay in one location and it's the location is designed so that it doesn't move much due to the erosion and subsidence of the nearby terrain. So it's all designed for that. But
So an upgrade from hatchet marks on the tree.
we don't have the hatchet mark. We don't have it. That's. I mean, I was in Hawaii a couple of years ago, and right in the middle of these rocks right next to the coast, there's this big concrete survey marker that they use as a. And we'll be doing something, I'll call it similar. It won't, in this case, these things won't be that expensive to put in, but yeah, that's what we're talking about. Is these. We tie to the state system, which ties then into the federal system. Kind of markers, not just a property pin. So, and then we got a good price on our tractor Sweeney's auction. We sold it for 23,000. We were looking in the just over 10, and so that was a welcome surprise.
So is that the one that you had offered?
No, this came about because we were looking at the different tractors that we have. This one is the one that's just got a lot of maintenance. It's we were having trouble with having to replace the filter nonstop. Their filters are going up. It's old. We can get by with one less tractor, so that was the decision matrix around it. Any more questions beyond that? I don't know where it was used as an at-large tractor, so in fact, some of you might actually know more than me on it.
What brand was
it? John Deere.
Most of the mowing tractors are John Deere, although you got one
International.
new one a couple of years ago.
Yep.
They were hard to get.
Yeah, they were hard to find, and they had one available.
That was before my time, I think, when that.
Yeah.
It
Just
was been
just right.
before like a few months.
Yeah.
Sure. I don't remember that whole.
Yeah. Yeah, they were hard
That
to
was
get.
one
They
of
had
the
them
first person I
sitting
made
there.
that was trying to figure out if we wanted the front wheel assist on the next one. So.
Yeah, it was like a year or more out, we ordered one, and they happened to have one
sitting there.
on the lot, so they bought it. At that time.
That's working just fine, I'm sure.
I hope so. It's only 3 years old.
Yeah.
Not even.
Ever any thought about, if we get new blade operators to send them to a class?
We do send
Blade school.
we missed last year's blade operator school, but yet we have blade operator school lined up this year.
Okay.
So
Will you rotate the whole bunch of blade operators through it over time just for?
the idea is that we revisit blade operator school, because that's kind of a statewide standard that it would be teaching. As best I can tell you is operating a blade is a lot more of an art than it is a science. And so some blade operators develop an artistic license, and not always favorable to everybody that likes it. I try to make sure that, you know, they keep a reasonable crown. We have had issues where you get too much crown. And that's when I'll have a conversation, but minus that, you know, the superintendent and foreman are try to keep things as best in check as they can. So that's all I have. That's pretty light work this week.
We're not signing you up for blade school, right?
I would actually kind of like going. I'm not gonna lie.
Why don't you go?
The problem is I've never operated one. And I don't even want to think about trying to operate a rack. The joysticks are just give a chance to operate for 5 minutes. Actually go into the class if I have to give you some county funds.
Thank you. You tried to say the instructor would have your hands full?
Well, you could practice out in the parking lot out there.
Well, county funds for the gas, if it's in the spirit of team building, I might do it. So if people want to roast me on my plating skills or something like that, I might do something like that. But outside of that, I'll stay away.
Anyone have anything else? Boy, thanks. Thank you, sir.
And Andy might bring this up, I see online and.
Cybersecurity programs that they got out, if anybody's interested in.
You can push down.
Second, third, I don't know, but Andy and I have been had communicated with Steve Vandenbrink a little bit about this EMS as an essential county service. It's in the miscellaneous. You can cross that off if you needed to get some more information at the hospital before we set an actual public hearing date. So you want to make sure everybody was on board. So we aren't doing that today.
Okay.
But maybe in a couple
And
weeks.
Ben, to be clear, this isn't a public hearing that gets set. It's we have to provide 60 days notice of your first reading of a resolution. And if you decide to do that, I didn't put it in as a public hearing, but I did put in reference to there being a public comment session so that you can get some feedback on support or opposition for the resolution itself.
So my latest email from Steve said maybe in another 2, 3, 4 weeks, he'll come back and we'll actually set that first reading date.
Have anything else for us, Andy?
I do not. How about you folks?
One question for you, Andy, is the issue of in reference to data centers, there's been issues raised about NDAs. Do we have any standing to limit NDAs as a government entity in that kind of a scenario? Is there case law or something that would either approve that, reject that?
I'd have to go back and do a little research on that, but my default answer to that is that a public body should not be signing an NDA because you're concealing from the public their right to know what's in the public record.
Yeah, I think it would be more in the direction of an entity wanting to deal with the board or with the government, withholding information that would be pertinent perhaps because of an NDA.
I think the idea is that if a developer wants to do something, that they might sign one with their client, and then when they apply for their zoning, how much information they pass on would be maybe be limited. And so my first impression is you need to get information as pertinent to the zoning, but maybe you don't need to know some details about who owns the facility or who, you know, when you're talking about zoning regs, so.
So the issue is whether it falls within any of the exemptions under 22.7. And I would need to take a look at that. For what it's worth, I'm up in St. Louis County, Minnesota right now, enjoying some time with some grandchildren, and the signs up here. There's a large kerfuffle over the NDA that the local city council signed, preventing the public from knowing who they're dealing with, and I need to look to see whether that's a legal issue for you and the scope of it. But there is some potential problem, obviously, with anytime a public entity signs an NDA.
Interesting.
I would think that if you're developing zoning ordinance, you're gonna identify very objective criteria, you know, if it's decibel levels or setback feet or whatever, and those would be things you have to know. And so whether they have an NDA should be moot then, because if those are things that you've identified. Of course, if it's, you know, what company overseas are you serving? Well, that's maybe not part of the zoning, whether it should be allowed or not. So that maybe isn't something you need to know. And so that's where that NDA is going to come into play, is how much they have to be careful what they sign. And if they sign an NDA, what they can be able to provide, because if they can't provide the information you need to make a zoning decision, then that's different than. But yeah, like Andy said, I don't think there's any case where you want to sign one, so.
All right.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Maybe a couple miscellaneous items. First, we have a road closure request from Snyder for July.
4th of July, for that, it's a temporary closure of a portion of County Road B32, for their parade, yeah.
Should I go by the zipper?
I move to approve the road closure.
Well, I
for-
think,
No.
no,
It
it's
goes past the church.
it
Oh,
goes,
yeah.
it goes, yeah.
It goes from 150 down past the church down there.
We don't have,
We don't have jurisdiction on the highway.
I'll second Mark's, you motion, Mark.
Yeah.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the road closure request for Steiner for July 4th on B32. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes unanimously. Next up, to discuss courthouse office use.
We have several, we've discussed some options, and we've had a walkthrough last week.
couple of walkthroughs.
So let's kind of summarize where we are. We've got one option that was discussed at length last week was the engineer being willing to vacate the space in the southwest corner with his Mike and Mike, and that southeast corner. I don't want to stir up questions because the southwest corner has already been evaluated as being unfeasible.
Yeah.
And the third floor, I've got two different layouts for the third floor that I can show you, but both of those are basically unfeasible with the court system and relocating departments up there. And so we have two, actually, I would say three potential choices we can make. And let me present those three. One would be the engineer's offer of vacating that space and relocating our assessor's office into that space, of which here is a layout that I did that will show that space with the ability to occupy
And if I may, as long as we're on that point, I had thought if they vacate that space, you could use this space, and if John leaves upstairs, you could take them too and give them to the attorney, and they can have 2 offices.
Well, the space upstairs, if they vacate this, then they would be moving these 2 engineers to the IT space on the 2nd floor.
Oh, I thought maybe
that would be
them around downstairs.
No, that would be the case. They don't have enough space downstairs to move them around that way with the existing personnel. Adding another.
One was maybe moving into engineers and one was in Maaten.
Well, no, one, but gets to, with the road superintendent in there, the forthcoming at some point assistant engineer, plus one of them, we get very crowded in the engineer side over there. So this idea would be to move those 2, Mike and Mike, that are existing in that office up to where the IT is, and their print operations and so forth would go up there. The scanner, that large format printer, would go into that space upstairs.
Which is actually where it came from, a couple of years ago, so.
And so, in this case, it would require, we'd be doing carpet upstairs in the area where the surveyors would be moved because they need that for their equipment and meeting. That could all be done. There's room up there for a conference table that meets their other needs. The downstairs space that the assessor could potentially occupy would need carpet and paint, very minor remodel.
You have to make your copy. I can give it to Jared.
To make a hang. I think there is it is a little bit tight. It's workable. There's other configurations of how this could possibly, we could fit them in there. Next offer, or next thing that was suggested by Mark Vick is potentially using the IT space on the 2nd floor. And then also taking a cut through into the recorder's office and putting an office space in there, reconfiguring some of the recorder's use. That is, it's very tight on trying to accommodate everyone and being able to do that. I'll give you a layout. This is a layout of the basic space, and what could occur. I'll pass these around. That would be probably a less desirable option.
With the idea being that the assessor would go into the IT space.
IT space and
part of the
recorder space. We do have the situation where the recorder space and its size is being occupied by basically 2 people, a large reception area. It occupies about the same space as what the auditor's office is with 4 personnel. Almost the same as the treasurer's office that is commonly a 6-person office, quite tight, but this is probably not as workable to try to get enough office space and flow for the assessor in there. I think, or you probably kick it all the way across. It's hard to get a hallway, but it is possible to get more in there. So those 2 are really the only 2. The other third option would be constructing brand new office space at the CSB building, giving space for one, probably giving the 2nd floor space where the IT department is for the casual use of the attorney's office with that connection to the courthouse. And that is the most costly aspect of any of these options.
And might involve either terminating a lease or at least
terminating one or 2 or amending. What space could be used, architectural plans, and a lot more. There's a lot more cost associated with it because of the configuration of that building with fire sprinklers and everything else. So that would be, in my opinion, the first presentation of the basement floor, 1st floor level, probably is a priority from construction cost standpoint and feasibility of being able to move forward quickly. That in all cases, it would require the assessor's office to be modified to put the attorneys in there by several walls and some configuration, new carbon paint in there, and that would meet most of those needs. In all cases, it comes
IT,
down.
in all cases, IT is planning to move over here in all three of those options. And they're in the process. I think you've already worked with John Lupke and John Hoverson about getting that space used.
Right, and we have, and I would suggest one additional thing with that move would be in the best interest of the whole courthouse. And right now there's 2 spaces over there that are used as a very poorly used lunchroom area. I would suggest that we close off the 2 spaces, make the 1 space which is accessible off the main hallway and to the door there to that restroom. I would make that into a small conference room or used by the IT department, whichever, and take the kitchen area with that closed off. We need some work in there of minor wall repairs and painting and a deep cleaning. And we would buy 2 new tables and chairs to make that into a nice lunchroom instead of what we're using currently, which is go in there. I could use the word disgusting as a possible.
Close.
Possible.
I like that option one.
I think
idea.
we do need to upgrade that.
Yeah, I think
If you're already gonna do some work on that southeast corner to make it into an office, and the bathroom needs some work anyway, why don't you do the hallway and the extra living room, dining room space, just do it all up while we're at it.
I believe that's the correct way. I think it would also be wise, since we don't, depending upon how future use of that space that we would generate over there, I'd suggest that we also look at, there's another way that we can put a second doorway into that bathroom off that little alcove by the stairs, which would then make that completely accessible from the other folks that are working within that space. And those are all modest construction items, because it appears that there might have already been a doorway there at one point in time from the looks of things. So I think those are the 3 options that are before the board. Of each one has pros and cons, each one has a different construction cost associated with it. But that's my opinion after the last 4 months of trying to sort through this.
I would agree with your opinion on these options. And first and foremost, because of the cost involved. Secondly, for me, it keeps everybody in the courthouse that work with each other on a daily basis. I like it.
And I appreciate that, especially thank you for all your work you put into mental hour of it's, I know it's so small.
I've been called a few names too in the process.
And I think this moving the 2 engineer people up, and it seems like a very logical and easy move for the most part. And upgrading this downstairs over here to what it needs to be, even if there's a few more things we need to do to make it, do it now while we're there.
Yeah, I'm not selling Mark's idea of the recorder's office completely short, because I didn't have the ability to really go in there in Jane's domain and understand her workflow and so forth. Because we may see some bigger changes in that down the road with all of the IT changes that are happening in that realm of the recorder. And who knows what that might be. That may be a whole department that over time could end up being modified drastically. I don't know.
No, I don't know either, yeah.
So, I mean, I can't address that. And so trying to carve more space out of there than just to look at, okay, put an office in there was the approach that I took. I didn't try to get in there and really dig in with Jane to say, oh no, this would harm this, or you ought to change this or that. That was not my approach on this.
Have you had a chance to look at this?
I have concerns. The first thing is, I guess, we have 4 people in our office and we deal with the public on a daily basis. There is a minimum amount of workflow and office space required. If somebody's sitting across from our desk and they need to describe what they're building or how a split is working as far as if they're subdividing the property, I'm not sure this space would house us adequately. A couple concerns. First off, the 42 by 72 table somehow is able to fit in a 4'4" space along the wall. Well, 72 inches is much bigger than 4'4". The other thing is Tanner's desk. He would have to have people behind him at all times instead of facing. most of our desks require 2 or 3 monitors. So I'm not sure there's adequate space in there. Plus, you're trying to put 4 people in a space occupied by 2. The engineer's office across the hall has 3. I don't know, could they not move to the south side?
They actually are used, there's 4 that basically use that office. There will be a 5th added in the future.
No,
It would still be 4.
The idea is there would be 5 for a few months of overlap. The idea is that when one of the admin is gonna retire, they wanna hire the assistant engineer 6 months or so ahead of time. So at that point, there would be 5 until that person retires, when it would go back to 4.
It used to be 5, because Corey and Jeff were both in there.
The other concern I have, so most courthouses, we are an anomaly. Most engineers' offices are not housed in the courthouse. If any other ones, that I don't know of any other ones. So I guess the assessor's office is willing to work with things, but in order for everybody to remain in the courthouse, it's also got to make sense for our office, I guess. I don't know what the long-term plan is. The other thing is sometimes courthouses get taken over by the court system, and then everybody ends up in an administrative building. So I don't know what the 20-year outlook for anything is, or we're just flying by the seat of our pants and saying 2026, let's get through that and worry about 2027. I don't know. But I don't know. We deal with customers on a daily basis. So it's gotta have a little.
Is there any one person in your office that could work separately from everybody else?
No, and I don't think any other office would just want their staff broken up and hodgepodge into a different location either. It just doesn't make a lot of sense for things like that. I guess the other thing is, I'm not sure how many attorneys there are gonna be for, but is there a way to break up the southeast side so that they have 4 office spaces in there? They already have 2.
I'll answer that for you simply because what Andy said was no. It's 4, could go to 5 because of the number of part-times for litigation or prosecution.
Can I say my 4 could go to 5 and then
You could. And we could be moving.
I know, I don't want to say that because that's not my point.
But remember, we could also move the engineer's office, but the cost of moving the engineer's office means, and which would be nice down the road, and we've had some conversation in the past about combining the engineer's office at EMS in a new location at the locus or at the Freeport shop. But we're probably looking at an excess of $500,000 expenditure there to we'd have a pretty good sized building when you got.
More importantly, it would probably be 3 to 5 years before we could get that all arranged. I mean.
And hopefully some creative grant writing.
Yeah.
And grant writing and a number of other things, but but the attorney's office, according to Andy, his answer was it wouldn't work. That's all I can tell you there. And let me clarify for you, that is an 18-inch by 42-inch countertop. This was scratched out trying to, and then plus an L-shaped wing.
18-inch by 42-inch?
Yeah, but then it continues over the top of that with it adding on a countertop over the top of that stub wall that exists right there, trying to make that all.
Oh, no, I was talking about the table in the middle of the other one.
That right there you would be better off with a round table. You could move Tanner over to the east wall and put that desk with somebody in front of him that want to. You could configure that in some other ways with existing portable office petitions that we have for sound control and things of that nature. File cabinets don't have to go where they are.
And this is just a rough draft.
This was a rough draft that was just trying to look at the space to see if it could be configured.
An idea of how many square feet this space is in comparison to ours?
Right now, yours includes a portion of the vault.
Right, no, yeah.
So I don't have that. It can, we have complete documentation of the original drawings of the building. And we can qualify that with those numbers.
It just seems like a substantial reduction in square footage to the point that I'm concerned that it would.
is having a private space to talk to people.
Well, so yeah, so anytime that I'm gonna,
If it is, I mean, could it be where John Halverson's office is made into a conference private meeting space?
I'm not familiar with where John.
That's
The maintenance guy underneath.
that would be pretty difficult, I think, Mark.
Why is that?
Well, we've still got to have a maintenance man.
Well, would we
And
have-
we use, that's a service sink that's in there besides, and I don't know where to relocate that. So,
Well, here's a, and I know the answer. Shirley was just asking me if the recorders would fit into this office, but then they don't have the vault.
we don't have a vault.
Okay, take Matt out of his office, put the steps back in, and then put the assessors in that office upstairs. They still have access to the whole vault. They'd have that small room downstairs.
Where Matt is, if you're talking about using this space with the vault, we got a men's restroom in between.
The men's restroom is in between. Just use Matt's office, right, that he's using right now as the recorder's office, and put the steps back up to the vault that we're taking out. And then they have complete access to the whole vault. The recorders do for their stuff. They're only staffed with two people. Then the rest of the recorder's office.
You would need to still have, because a lot of the people using the access to the vault are public and they couldn't go up the spiral steps. So they'd still have to go have access to the vault.
Well, in that case, if you had to, yes, you could.
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility that wasn't considered, whether or not. I'll let you address it with Jane.
Well, we have two people in a room.
Oh, I know.
We have how many in the recorder's office or in the treasurer's office?
Oh, we got 6.
6 in the same amount of
Oh, I
space.
agree.
It-
We can put,
Not everybody's gonna be happy. We've already figured that out.
we determined that we determined that 4 months ago.
What is the best use of space is what we have to look at. And
With the 2 people and not knowing, I don't know the flow, how often during the transaction they would have to access the vault. Do you have any idea of that, Ben?
For in the recorder's office, people who do research in the vault are usually not stopping at the counter to do a lot of talking. They're gonna be their passport applications and their people requesting copies of documents or whatever. They have, real estate, whether it's abstractors or whoever, who go back in the vault basically on their own and research through the old books. And that's what they're doing back there. They have actually added a copy machine back there specifically for those people to make their own copies, so they aren't always trying to help them to make copies. So you should talk to Jane about how frequent that is. I don't know if that's every day or if that's many times a day or once in a while. I don't know that.
Have assessors, recorders, the third one here, gone with you on these tours to see the spaces and talk amongst themselves of
Some of
what
them
could
want
work?
The assessors were
They've been very accommodating.
And Jane, I mean, they might have,
They were all part of the tour that we did of everything.
Great.
With the exception of going to the third, but we did go to the third floor also. So we can revisit this next week and add one more option and talk about that. That's certainly open. Splitting between 2 floors might be challenging. It might be, with the amount of space involved, a possibility to change their front counter to accommodate more space in that area and still continue all the way across with offices and space in the west portion of Jane's space. It may, some configuration of sorts there.
East portion. East portion.
Yeah, no, that's.
Take that wall all the way across, so that.
Take the wall all the way across to the south.
Yeah.
And then continue in that corner back there all the way out to this side of the west side.
Corner.
Yeah, that
So
will,
that would be,
that would give a lot.
that is
lot
a
of square
possibility
footage.
of how to configure that and try to work with Jane to see if there is a way to do that. That is, it's a very large space utilized the least of any of the spaces that we have inside the dome.
But
Yeah.
I'm a little concerned about putting a hole in the wall between the IT, the recorder's office. If there was some way to lay it out that you could utilize that, because they have two doors. So if you could utilize that door that connects into the short hallway that goes to IT rather than
Why,
putting a hole in the wall.
why does the clerk of court not use that other door?
The front one, if they have that front kind of corner is all storage of records.
And that's been that way for a long time.
So that door could be,
Yeah, they'd have to move, I don't know where they'd store those records. I mean, that corner is completely filled up with record storage.
but if they, yeah,
the jail
if they
cells,
did use that front door, then you could use that hallway.
As part of the, yeah.
As an open corridor between those two sections, yeah.
Yes.
And there is some space upstairs in the jail cell. Do we have one
There's one
One-
unused
One
cell.
unused cell.
It could be separated, basically locked, and there's places along the wall where you could store records, but they wouldn't be secured like they could in a cell.
Because we have a lot of secure things up there.
Like all those books I took up that were in that old jail are just in an unsecured area, but they had been unsecured for
Down here.
anyway, so I wasn't concerned about that, but some of their things they keep in locked rooms up there.
Yeah, and we have
If-
there are three cells on that upper floor of the jail, two of which are occupied by court records from their juvenile records we moved out previously. But there's one unoccupied space there that can be completely secure.
Yeah, because if we could use that hallway and then where the IT is now and incorporate that in part of the assessors possibly, then that gives them basically their own conference room back there in the IT room right now, where you do need privacy in a conference room occasionally, correct?
I mean, yeah, the privacy is more for an individual thing. If we're, because there's probably spaces that we can live with having the board of review house.
Like the board of review meets for 2 to 4 weeks in May, but they could use the conference room next to my office.
Yeah, for that,
Let's have a conference room with the community services.
it's more for individuals coming in and having private conversations. Or God forbid, which, you never want that. As a department head, you have to have a private conversation with one of your employees.
So there should be at least one office that is, right, your office.
Well, I mean, at any given moment, you might be having multiple people in there having different discussions with.
Although right now in the assessor's office, none of them are
None of them-
really private. I mean, that one thing is an accordion door, so.
And Rob can shut hers, Tanner can shut his door. The only one that really doesn't have any level of privacy is Amy, which is the face of the office, so she doesn't really.
That's public space.
Right, she doesn't really.
On dawn, you could shut the one door, but it's still open to the back where.
Right.
Yeah, so we can't. Under none of these scenarios can I see how we can accommodate everything. Some are better than others.
Can I just ask, and I know it sounded like it's pretty much off the table, well, what kind of numbers were you looking for to put in office spaces at this building? Like, do you have any idea what it would
Go to
cost?
CSB, move your entire operation over there.
Yeah, just out of curiosity.
Depending on the size, which space we could accommodate, we could actually unleash. My preference would be to take the center core section as being the optimal space over there, which is a large, big, open, very big open area with one private office in the back that was kind of a semi-vault. And utilizing that would be the least impactful. If it had to have other private space within that, the issue in that building is that a very high ceiling and there's air conditioning issues that would be involved, plus the fact that fire sprinklers in there have to be, can't be, if you create a space underneath this, you have to drop fire sprinklers down to create fire suppression under that, plus have fire suppression above, which we did in some places over there where we put in some ceilings and brought that in. That was about $5,000 expense just for 2 rooms.
There is a conference room.
And that conference room that we have over there, we have a separate standalone conference room over in the CSB building. It's an open
Right
conference
by the
room.
front entrance.
So we'd probably spend, if that space was available, we'd probably spend around 100,000 in there, round numbers. If we go over to where Toys Go Round are and occupy that space, which would be best if we could then remove 2 offices that are being used by Spectrum currently, relocate those and create them in another space over to the other part of their building, and then build new offices along with that, tie those all together. We'd probably spend maybe double that, because we got a wide open space that's going to require a lot more involved. And it would mean some upgrades on some of the mechanical equipment to accommodate all of that.
Yeah,
So we can easily
150,000.
150,000, we could go through that quite easily. And we still have the issue of the timing of how can we create the lease changes that we would need to do. So that's an open question. It could be very well done. That's, like I said, that's third option.
I was just asking. I didn't know if you guys had any idea what it was.
Early on, what I heard from everyone inside the courthouse over your request was, oh no, we work too close with the assessor's office to have them off site. It's too inconvenient to be able to go shuttling between on documents and so forth, that
It's just not a real feasible building over there.
it's not an easy one to work with.
It's just not a.
That's
Heating
why
systems, the heating systems, there's 2 separate heating systems.
That's why they have the attorney, if it was possible, to be located over there. And he said it wasn't convenient, but only if they had to, they would still need at least 1 room here. So
You wouldn't require 1 room here for the relocation of your offices, which is a possibility. But then it comes down to both Mark and Dan are the ones that have more current feel on the leases and the current tenants, because that's not in my scope of.
Well, in the space that would work best for either the county attorney or yourself would be part of the space that's being occupied by HHS right now.
Yeah.
You've already been down that road.
Yes,
Been down that road.
that's the only way we would get any of that front part of that building back, I believe, is if that center section was given to them.
And then.
But it might be easier to use the center section and move Spectrum to the other side of the wall.
Any which way, yes, Spectrum would have to. office space
Spectrum would have to
be
move.
moved into their own.
But it might be easier to move Spectrum than to move DHS.
By all the negotiating and everything, yes,
yeah,
because they're not easy to get a hold of and talk to because.
Well,
they're
in
priced.
long term, if any one of the tenants there, whether it's DHS says they're downsizing or they get regionalized or something, or Spectrum needs to relocate to something smaller, and we get a bunch of space open up, that would be a lot easier than the.
Step into.
there is that option. I mean, accelerate moving the engineer's office out to Freeport. We're paying $2,000 a year for rental for storage just on one entity of the county. So I mean, and we're paying it for public health. I mean, building and moving engineers out there would probably pay for itself over time. And if we have excess money from a land sale, maybe we should expedite that Freeport option.
Well, I think it's definitely something to look, they're getting some figures put together to see what kind of square footage we need.
You think about what Fayette County has in their shop over there, or even down at Clayton.
I think
has
long
really
term,
nice
it
too.
probably is a good idea. I don't think it's something you're gonna get done by.
No, but I mean, so,
I mean,
okay,
in January.
so they,
Yeah.
So if somebody has to squeeze in for a year and make that work,
Or two.
I mean, whatever, I mean.
That's why the
Actually,
engineer's office could move across over into Mike and Mike's. They'd be the one leaving, so we accommodate the engineer's office, go for the assessor and. I mean, yeah, if they could accommodate for a year or so in there, a year and a half.
If we just commit to, let's get this Freeport option going with a nice EMS and potential storage, so we're not paying storage for other facilities.
And if you say open up, you got all of the engineers out of there, there might be a spot to put public health in the courthouse.
Yeah.
And so you're leasing space up there.
It would be both them off, they could use both them offices on
So-
the outside.
If we could expedite this plan with the engineer,
Could put the assessor go into the engineer's office or. That'd probably be the easiest for them than use the other one and public health could have the two.
Public health
Across
has
the hall.
Southeast area for their offices, and the other one could be storage or where they do. clinic
Shots
or
or
something,
clinics, yeah,
Which,
would easily work.
where where Matt
Or
is.
bad is.
Yeah.
And it's next to the bathroom,
Bathroom.
so if they
Plumbing.
needed to add a. Facilities there for like the foot clinic or something, it's just on the other side of that wall. It might be easier.
Well, we're not mandated to have a foot clinic. so
No, I'm
we don't
not
have
saying
to-
that, I'm just saying that that's one of the things they bring up, so.
Yep.
no, but you know, you look at, we'd save about.
It's about 30
Just in rent, we'd save 40.
36 grand
$30,000 a
at
year.
the Smith building and a couple of storage units for. The different entities
The
have.
ones on here today were 1,800 or something a year, and two of them, like over 2,000 apiece.
One's
The sheriff was
the
one.
sheriff and one's the one that John Halverson and that we organized. That John Halverson did.
Here we
Oh,
go.
here he
He's
comes.
Listening.
Both of you might as well come up to the
Yeah, I
table.
was gonna say, it's hard to hear, Jerry.
Come on up, can't hear you.
Then if you're ready to
So,
go, I can hitch a ride with my family. Okay.
Going in and out of the conversation, there was a discussion about us moving over to Freeport sooner rather than later. I just want to give you some figures. So Chickasaw County recently did their own building. And it's a very modest building. And they ended up spending $560,000 for an office of 4 people. You would have 6 people, and then the idea was we would tag on EMS at that point.
Emergency management, not.
Yeah. Sorry.
Medical. EMA.
EMA, sorry.
Yep.
I-
It's common, it's a common.
EMS.
Yeah.
Yep. It's EMA, so the idea here is that you're looking at $1 million, just round number, for a new facility out there.
No.
Now, I don't, maybe we get it for 800, maybe we get it for, but I'm just saying, if we're going last year's Chickasaw County building with the same modest, siding, office, same type of offices and same size and everything. What we're talking about is, upping that with to $1 million to 9 people. And, 500,000 divided by 4, it's over 100,000 per person. Maybe it's not gonna be
You know,
100,000
have
per person.
that many more bathrooms and that much.
Right.
You still need more space.
There's gonna be more space, correct.
So maybe it's 750,000 or something, but.
Well, I looked at their bid tabs and their bid tabs range from the low bid was, I think it was 560, 540, something. The numbers are a little bit fuzzy. But well over 800 was another bid. So there's a huge variability there that you're running into.
And your preference is if we have an extra 500,000, that we replace the shop and Locust as our higher priority, right?
Yeah, Locust and Freeport both need to be, worked on as individual shops. But Locust definitely, that's Freeport needs to be improved and then Locust needs to be.
So was the,
replaced.
for comparison's sake, I haven't seen the Chickasaw shop. It's different than the Fayette shop, which included a big conference room plus a bunch of other things. What was included with the Chickasaw build out? Was that just engineer's office? Was that engineer's office plus?
It was just the engineer's office.
Just the engineer's
It
office.
had, and I'm gonna go off memory here, so it might be
Okay.
fuzzy. It had one larger room for the county engineer, then it had, offices that are bigger than Mike and Mike's room. A little bit bigger than that room. It had a conference room that had a table, maybe one of these tables, I think it could fit 6 or 8 people. And it had a bathroom, it had storage room for old surveys and all the recorded documents. And it had a little bit of a front office area for the manager, the office manager. It's very modest. That's what I'm getting. It's the engineer's office, the tech's office, they're a little bit bigger because I'm sure they're storing survey equipment and everything else with the inside housing that inside there.
There'd be things like what you have stored in the old jail and what you have stored in that little cupboard between your office and the pop machine and those kinds of things that you would need on site.
Yep.
Yeah.
That we would put on site.
You wouldn't be able to keep those here if your office was out there.
I'm not saying we couldn't keep them here, but the thing is why would we do that?
If you're gonna move the engineer's office, you gotta move it. You shouldn't move it all.
That would be the cleanest thing, I think, for everybody without, getting into the nuts and bolts, which I'm not ready to get into that right now.
How many square feet is it? Do you know?
I can see if I can get text up.
Is it current,
Now, it's
current location?
In the Chickasaw one.
I can text and see if I can get that number for you.
What are you talking on cost and upgrades in your shop at Freeport?
Freeport, what are we talking with EMA?
You want to upgrade it?
Because there's 2 different possibilities. There was one with we would add on EMA to the end.
Well, just for your.
We're talking 150 to 250.
So that's.
But that's not, there's no quotes there. I've received no quotes, and that's assuming.
Office spaces.
Yeah, that's assuming a lot right there. But I've got penciled in just with the EMA. I've got an idea in my head about 400.
There is the wild idea of selling the Spectrum building and taking the proceeds, putting towards the upgrade on the facility out at Freeport to accommodate HHS, and public health could move in here and our HHS and.
Trying to get a market rate out of selling the Spectrum building at this point, based on real estate analysis of the rental, the lease rates that come in, including DHS, would not support the value that we paid for it, according to a conversation I had with Ted Kurt.
Well,
and when I went to that meeting the other day, I happened to be by chance sitting next to him when I went to that local realtors meeting over at the Viking Bank. I ended up sitting next to Kurt, and he brought that point up. He said, "You guys paid too much money for that building." He's speaking as the realtor, but he said your lease rates and your income won't support it in the private sector.
But whoever buys it may not use it as it is.
With the food pantry pays a current market rate, perhaps.
Pretty close, yes.
And we don't really have current market rate on DHS per se. We'd have, if we did sell it, then we would have to absorb that and bring that up. But those were his comments, so I don't, that's all I could input.
I mean,
into that
the
part.
real question is, if you sell it, as is part of the sale, that they have to house the spectrum and the current tenants at the current rates for a certain number of years or not. I mean, if you say that that isn't part of the stipulation, then you can get more to sell the building, but then where do all those people go? And that's a whole different.
It's not our responsibility.
Yeah.
On those other entities, if we don't own the building.
Right.
50 by 124.
What'd you say?
Oh, we're just curious what the landfill.
What the landfill building
was
cost.
330-ish.
For the replacement?
Mhm.
Yeah, and
That's just a whole shed, right?
it's got floor heat,
Cement, no, no,
Oh, it was
cement.
330,000.
and that's where that's kind of how looking at the Freeport shop is a very similar kind of thing. The addition of the EMA on that is going to be for the I had 350 in my head. That's where I was thinking we might be a little bit more, since we'd be having more rooms divided up and everything else inside on that, I'll call it rough estimate based on that price that they're just quoting there.
There's a real good price on the concrete though too on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you were to change the Freeport shop, would that been including abandoning the existing shop portion of it and replacing it all new?
We store a lot of things outside that we should probably have inside. So it's going to be, would be 3 new bays plus EMS.
EMA.
EMA, I see, I said it again. So it would be those 3 bays plus EMA, and they would be the additional, confounding thing is we're looking at putting a new diesel fueling station kind of out in that, where we would add on to the south there, down in that direction. So then if we do EMA and the engineer's office and the new fueling station,
You run out of room.
we're talking about we would be the living trust that we have, the prairie grass right there. We would be talking to the board about I call it violating that or reneging on that, or what do you want to call that, that agreement?
Just terminating
Terminating that trust at that point, to fit all of that stuff in. But the Freeport shop would be very beneficial in keeping our maintenance, our equipment in better shape, if we were to add on the 3 bays. So, yeah, and with the engineer's office and the diesel refueling station, it's still gonna be a little bit of site plan work to accommodate, would be quite a bit to accommodate that, to make sure that parking is not interfering with fueling operations and things like that. So
it's not a short-term option, is what you're saying.
well, if you're gonna move this out there, there's no way that'd be a short-term option. I would presume that if you move this out there, then we would be there indefinitely, and most likely in perpetuity.
Yeah, but I mean, it won't happen. It'll probably take at least 2 years to get to your site planning and bid.
I think it could be
building.
I think it could be in a little bit over a year.
And we need space before the next 2 years. We need space.
But we were
During
just
one.
talking, if push come to shove, if we went that way, could you get along in the room where Mike is for a year and a half or something, if push come to shove?
We're gonna have another person coming in, and not even before this meeting, I was just opining that maybe we look at the graduates out of this year's senior class as so then all of a sudden we've got that person in our office. We're just, to be quite frank, the best time to have them come in would probably be in October, but October is not a good time to try and hire someone out of school.
Because they're already looking.
So I mean,
So
I'm not, me personally, I worked in a basement for years, but that's not, I mean, I wasn't presenting in front of people. I wasn't a public official, right? So I don't, my personal feeling on this is like a little bit,
Sticky wherever you want to put me.
yeah, but I have, you know, a group of 6 people who all have, you know, presented this, you know, face of the engineering department, and then we have no room to have meetings for you know, when there's dust control permits, when there's, the other problem that we have is one of the biggest problems that we have is that we need to have space for HIPAA. So in effect, anytime there's a HIPAA event, someone gets injured, someone doesn't pass a drug test, someone, whatever, everybody's just gotta up and leave. And that's one of the reasons that we're separated there already, and it hasn't been made combined already. So the answer is, if you have to, but I mean, I really push against that.
We could construct short-term that office out in the hallway that was there several years ago, taken out. The fairly minimal expense. If we're not gonna take John Alderson's office.
I hate to even bring it up, but temporary
Best thing
office
maybe to
space
get their
parked out there. Like they
recorder
are
saw
schools,
the
or they're
table,
building
take it
schools.
off.
Just put it over.
Like when they're building the school, they'll often bring in temporary
Trailer.
trailers.
You're talking about putting a trailer here? Freeport. I mean, that's certainly an
I
option.
mean, schools do it all the time.
I mean, ultimately, I am your servant, right? But I'm telling you, like, this is, yeah. My first option is just do nothing with our department. Second option would be to figure something out like that. Third option, you know, move my techs upstairs and figure it out that way. And then that's how I presented it to everyone that's talked to me. I'll stick by that.
Well, let's bring Jane down. If Jane is available, let's bring Jane down here and just continue this conversation.
On Monday.
No, let's just do it
Right
today.
now.
Today?
Yeah,
You want
today.
to actually call Jane and see if she,
She's on.
oh, Jane's on. Can you come down, Jane?
I have to unmute her.
But did you hear what I was just saying at this end of the table? When schools are in transition with building projects and other entities.
Temporary classrooms are a thing.
Temporary classrooms, and we could rent temporary offices and park it in Freeport possibly for 1 or 2 years.
I mean,
They're
one of
fairly
the-
big.
I think that we must have got a good, or Chickasaw County must have had a good deal. Just opinion, the engineer's opinion of probable cost that was done by Turo Architecture for Chickasaw County. Their estimated construction cost came in at $688,000. So they got a pretty good price.
I'm not.
You're talking about renting these trailers
Would be another.
for plus about $1 million, that's a round number.
Oh.
And then
It couldn't work best, so, okay. I'll let her
Your
know.
offices operate in that smaller space. If we move the 2 techs upstairs, knowing that it is a short-term, 2-year, 3-year solution for long-term planning.
Okay,
As we get grants written and get more
thank
money
you.
in.
Could I make a comment?
short
This is
term.
Sean.
It's into a 20-year short term thing.
That my,
Because
my wife went to school in temporary classrooms and 25 years later, those buildings are still there and they're still used.
that's
Temporary classrooms. I'm just.
I get,
Jane is the only one in her office, so she can't leave right
That's
now.
good to hear.
And she did want me to point out that she has 3 people at times, because she's got a part-time person. So when you keep saying 2, she said, make sure they realize that there's 3 of us.
How about to be continued on Monday?
And then,
I agree.
This is Benita, the clerk of court. Can I say something as well about the modifying? If you're looking at modifying the recorder's office, switching around our door for the clerk's office, which I know you guys mentioned that to make extra space up there. I'm not saying it couldn't be done, but those are like rolling file cabinets, and we don't even have boxes or anything. It's like file on top of file stuffed in there. So they're pretty snug. And those are files we refer to regularly. The abstract office comes in and looks at them. If we had to move those, we would have somebody from our office having to go out to the jail several times a day. And we would have to either escort or walk the abstract office over there and give them access as well to check files. And to move that within our office, I don't know that that would be an option. We're really pushing the guidelines for having sufficient space around our desks for ADA accommodations and that kind of thing. So I don't think we have extra space to move it within our office.
so are those like paper records stored there? Is that what you're saying?
They are, yes, actual court files, paper files.
Fortunately, we just got rid of a whole file server system out at our other building we sold.
They have checked into putting some of those on electronically. The expense is pretty huge, and time-wise, we just don't have staffing to sit and scan all those in. And then we'd have to, it's security as well, so we'd have to have them on a limited security site, so. I know nobody is gonna be happy. Well, not nobody, but not everybody will be happy. I totally get that. I just thought I would mention that. Moving the door may be more work than it seems like, but it's not to say it can't be done.
So to be continued on Monday.
Hey, everybody, this is Sean. Can I make a quick comment?
Go ahead.
If Michael and the engineering department is capable, one suggestion would be we need to get drawings made up. We need to get some estimates by, local people, because for grants, we're going to need to be what's called shovel ready in order to be even looked at for grants. Ashley Henson has an EOC grant that we looked at as a commission a couple years back. For like my piece of the puzzle, I could see us being awarded that by calling it an EOC type situation. So just food for thought. I think we're going to need estimates and drawings before we can really look at grants.
I agree.
Thanks, Sean.
I have an observation. The Smith Building, where public health is, you've commented in the past that you're paying rent on bigger space than public health using. How much space is public health not using in that upper story?
I guess that would probably.
We're just
depend on
gonna
who you talk to.
We're planning on getting out of that anyway up there, and that's not even renting it, so.
I think you could probably fit one of the offices up there, but that's another location. It gets you stuck there longer rather than getting out of there sooner, but.
Our goal is to they can move down to the DHS or CBS.
My thought pattern was short term.
No, but
Long term.
that is.
Good point.
Right, till next week.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second, third, and all those in favor, say aye.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody online too. That's who you are.
Yeah, I'm sure you're all wondering about that. Yes, I'm district rep for Congressman.
Regular thing, yes. When is, before she leaves office.
So can you assure us?
Supervisor meetings.
I don't, can't do that. Not necessarily sure, but we'd be happy to. You know,
I did not make a habit of.
Oh, yeah?
Supervisor.
Well, good, that's what we're here for. So I'm based out of the Dubuque office,
Absolutely.
cover 7 counties in northeast Iowa. This is my second time into court.
Well, that's the
Being one
guy
of the
doing
principal
attendance sticking around, that's why I gotta keep
And
showing
I
up to these
play
meetings.
Miscellaneous
I don't want it.
We go to the walk on city council meeting this evening, and yep,
Putting you
so
over there is-
that, and then I plan to visit
Nothing becomes easy in this.
attend these meetings at least
Oh, I
quarterly.
see.
And if there's ever a special
Very-
event or a reason for me to attend outside of the
And
those quarterly visits, please let me
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
I'll be happy to make that a
Consider you guys
priority,
big.
so.
Number one.
If there's anything I can do for you.
There's always time.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's anything I can do for you guys, the county, any of your communities, any of the constituents that we share, just let me know. You know, we do things like, yeah. Yeah.
Top, there you go.
We have a grants coordinator in Cedar Rapids and be happy to look at, you know, everything, make sure that it's in order and aligned and that, high chances for approval, things like that. Also, community project funding. I don't know if you're familiar with that. But it's something that every congressperson, they get 20 projects to consider and send a committee for approval for funding. And that ranges from anywhere from, you know, a couple $100,000 to multiple $1 million projects. So, yeah, be happy to add you guys to that list. We'll notice.
Cities and counties?
As long as it's a government entity. Yeah. So
It's dependent on how much time.
Sorry?
Yeah. He'll make time for it, but he's gonna make a lot of money.
They're on the city council. Oh, really? Can you do that? Can you rule 2 offices? Okay, I'm sure it's okay, but I don't know if you're trying to do that.
As
long as you're not the mayor.
Conflict of interest on vote on anything, they step aside.
Abstain from
Can you
anything
recommend
like that. Okay.
My answer always is.
Same ballot for
Do
2
you have a
different
contractor
positions.
that's free right now?
You can't be the
Years
mayor.
are offset.
Oh.
You do not want them.
Well, there
No,
go.
you don't want them because there's a reason that they're free. My buddies that have contractors are 2 years
Let
out.
me know if I can do it.
Donations and city.
Absolutely.
It's usually
not.
Yeah.
They're like that sometimes. I get it. You know, yeah, for sure.
If you have
Yep.
them that has
I'll be
nothing
happy
better to
to
do.
come
than-
back anytime, okay?
Thank you.
There's a reason that they have nothing better to do.
But you ready to go upstairs, Dan?
Thank you for coming.
Yep, absolutely.
Good luck.
Yeah. See ya. So, you wanna go with us? To the recorder's office?
I think, no,
What?
you're.
Come on, are you gonna be like, Vince, be a coward in this whole situation?
You guys are very.
You don't wanna go up there and
Well, I
talk
was
to
gonna
Jay?
stop into my office. Maybe I'll stop in there and see what.
Well, they've been watching the whole thing, so you might as well.
I know they have.
Go ahead. It's a good newspaper if you haven't.
Bye,
read it.
everybody.
Read this newspaper?
I have read it.
I read it every,
Okay,
I do
we're-
the online every
We're
day.
done, Fatima. There's only one left.
There you go, Ben. There's a good newspaper. Gotta read it. You ever read it?
No, other than I think you brought